Commander Celatron floated above the deck plates of the HSS Vagrant Wind. Her mag boots disengaged so she could watch the stars wheel by without the vibration of the engines humming up her bones. The Corvette's forward blister, barely 8 meters wide, was a fragile bubble of diamond glass welded onto a 100-meter hull that in a saner universe should never have faced a naval action alone. Yet here she was, cut off from the Third Fleet by the Dominion's surprise counteroffensive, 56 light minutes inside enemy picket space, armed with only a spinal railgun, 2 squadrons of dronelings, and a crew young enough to think a good plan could beat bad odds. She toggled the tight beam throat mic. "Nav, give me burn status." Lieutenant Uri Orland's voice crackled through the internal net. "Main still at 60%. We can keep 10 Gs another 12 minutes before the coils need a cooldown. Reaction mass down to 11%. Good. Enough to sprint, not enough to run all the way home." Sella pivoted in the microgravity, shoes barely brushing the transparent floor, until her eyes found the thing they'd been tracking for 3 hours. 40 kilometers of armored flesh and carbon-latticed bone, glistening in the light of Tau Seat 227, moving with a manta ray's grace against the starfield. A biomechanical Leviathan, the Dominion called them war seraphs. The propaganda hollows always showed them in formation with destroyer escorts as if they were pets on leashes. Up close, the lie bit like dry ice. No leash could hold that. Sella keyed the all-hands channel. "You've all seen the SIGINT. Dominion Heavy Group Apache Lance is inbound from the far side of that rock arc. Flagship Archon of Redemption, 2 shield cruisers, 5 missile tenders. Between them and us floats one very angry, very lost war seraph. The Dominies bred it to answer only to their hymn codes, but the last skirmish scrambled its receptors. It's blind, deaf, and itching to bull rush anything that pings active sensors." She paused, let the weight of it settle. "We make it chase us. Then we dive straight through Apache Lance. The beast hits first. We slide in its wake, hull plating intact. The Dominion loses capital ships. We keep breathing." There was silence except for the ventilation fans. Then Ortega from Gunnery laughed once, sharp. "Gotta tell you, Skip, when I joined the Navy, I imagined bars on shore leave and embarrassing tattoos. Not this." "Stick with me," Sella said. "You'll get the tattoos later." She flicked her boots on, clamped to the deck, and strode aft to combat. Holotanks traced light onto every face. 6 officers, 19 enlisted, the whole ship's nerve bundle. Tactical Officer Nyla Shepard looked up, eyes glassy from stimulant patches. "Plots updated," Shepard said. "Seraph's vector still converging. Dominion heavies at T-minus 26 minutes. Their frigate screen sits 3 million clicks ahead, but we've been keeping passive. They haven't sniffed us." "Let's pray they keep sneezing," Sella answered. Shepard raised an eyebrow. "And if the Seraph decides to melt us with its spinal Aurora cannon instead? That's why we're bait. It never fires at something it thinks is running. Predatory reflex. The designers coded that in so their own ships could ride its shadow. As long as we stay just out of its strike envelope, we live." "Predatory reflex," Shepard snorted. "You read too many xenobiology journals. Read one, married the author, divorced the author, memorized the alimony clause," Sella said. Laughter rippled, thin but real. Fear became manageable once you could joke about it. The ops clock clicked past 1340 ship's time. Sella signaled nav for the next burn. A 4-second spike to swing Vagrant Wind onto a shallower curve, bleeding just enough velocity that the Leviathan's primitive distance instinct would register a retreating meal. Behind them, the Seraph's gill vents flared ultraviolet. It pulsed a shove of photonic plasma, its version of a power stroke, and closed the gap by 10,000 clicks in a blink. Even at range, the ship's dampers shuddered. Orland cursed through the net. "Skip, that thing sneezes and we vaporize." Sella's jaw tightened. "Hold course. Engineering. Ready the coolant shunts. When we pass the cruiser line, we'll need every erg into shields." She half expected Chief Engineer Rayat's gravelly protest about the strain, but all she heard was, "Aye, Skipper. Already bribed the reactor with 3 cans of stim brew." The pursuit stretched, tense as piano wire. The Leviathan crept to within 240,000 kilometers, knife-fighting distance in space terms. Its maw of nacreous plates opened. A proboscis of antennae tasted the vacuum where vagrant winds drive wake shimmered. Shepard muttered a prayer. If it guesses we're not edible, it won't. Sella forced a calm she didn't wholly feel. She'd spent 2 months on a research outpost dissecting a smaller juvenile, listening to her ex-wife wax poetic about apex biowarfare. The creatures recognized prey by 3 cues: heat bloom, vector, and electromagnetic signature. They disregarded objects with erratic throttle pulses. To them, that read as fellow hunters. The Dominion had never imagined an enemy daring enough or desperate enough to mimic that rhythm. A ping lit the tack board. Active sweeps from the Dominion frigate screen. Shepard's fist hit the console. They're curious. Not about us, Sella said. They're watching the Seraph. She toggled the gain on her earbud. Through the ghostly static came choral command packets, Dominion hymn code, each phrase repeating 3 times at offset intervals. Return to cradle. Blessed star child. The enemy wanted their lost juggernaut back. Sella smiled, teeth bared. Signal room, record that chant, invert frequencies, broadcast on our belly array. Narrowband, just loud enough for the beast to taste. Lieutenant Maya Yu, the comms officer, hesitated. Skipper, those pulses fry unshielded boards inside a kilometer radius. We're inside that. Spread them thin, strobe the pattern. We're shielded enough for bursts. Yu nodded, fingers already dancing across the holokeys. The first inverted shard of hymn sliced the darkness. The war seraph reacted like a harpoon kraken. Its dorsal ridges unfurled, each a city-sized blade receptor, throwing reflections across vagrant wind's hull. It surged, jaws gaping, overtaking the Corvette's port flank so closely, the crew on observation deck screamed as organic plating blurred past. It didn't attack. It simply wanted the noise silence, and silence lay in front of it, where the little ship led. Sella rode that instinct. Nav, give me a 10G haircut burn, Vector 085. Vagrant wind kicked, pressing her crew into couches. Gravity returned like a giant's thumb to the ribs. Bulkheads groaned. They shot ahead, slingshotting around a minor rubble moonlet and straight toward Apache Lance. On tack display, the Dominion formation reshuffled, cruisers interposing between flagship and the incoming Leviathan. Missile tenders vomited interceptor clouds. Staccato beads of light. Yu's gasp flooded comms. They're trying to kill their own beast. Or at least slow it. Sella's mouth ran dry. Each missile impact blossomed into concentric fractals against the Leviathan's forward shields. Photosynthetic sails meant to harvest stellar wind now flashed white, then regrew with horrifying speed as nanomuscles knitted anew. The creature barely noticed. It accelerated, using point defense bursts as if the heat flares were stepping stones. The distance to first cruiser, splendor and obeisance, fell below 30,000 kilometers. In space warfare, that was boarding range. Sella snapped, point guns free. I want every EM round into Dominion sensors. Blind them. Ortega's gunnery team obeyed. Vagrant wind's spinal rail spat tungsten carbide flechettes laced with chaff bombs. They shredded the cruiser's radar arrays, leaving it stumbling. Then the ram landed. The Leviathan slammed Splendor amidships. Organic armor met Tritanium. Tritanium lost. The beast's prow speared clean through, half its mass buried in metal viscera. A heartbeat later, internal magazines cooked off. A star bloomed, brief and hungry, but the creature's self-healing integument quenched the blow like a breaker stone dividing surf. Shockwaves lashed vagrant wind, but she rode the lee of the Leviathan's flanks, shield aft angled forward, sliding through fiery debris channels too narrow for Dominion pursuit weapons. For 3 blinding seconds, the Corvette was inside a carnivorous womb of fire and chitin, and then she was out, skipping along the beast's belly toward the next victim. Orlon whooped. Skip, we're still in one piece. Try to keep it that way, but Sella allowed herself a savage grin. Plan A, unthinkable hours ago in the map room, had survived contact with reality. Ahead, the Dominion flagship's escort cruiser, St. Auspex, turned broadside, luminescent spears charging along its coil guns. It committed the cardinal sin of space combat. It sat still to aim. The war seraph curled, reading that pause as weakness. Bioluminescent nodes along its thorax brightened from blue to ultraviolet. It fired a condensed aurora beam, a ribbon of magnetically squeezed plasma. St. Auspex melted. No explosion, just the sickly flow of armor becoming vapor. Decks laid open like pages curling in flame. Crew vented into vacuum before they could scream. The beam carved 10 kilometers of nothingness beyond the cruiser's edge, missing vagrant wind by less than 1,000 meters. Shields flickered crimson, temperature alarms keened. Sella felt sweat freeze at the base of her skull. Orlin, keep us to starboard of its jaw. Close but not too close. Aye, aye, hugging the armpit, ma'am. You on comms shouted, Dominion open channel. They're pleading with us to cease interference, offering safe passage if we stand down the beast. Shepard barked a laugh. Ask if that includes dental. Sella shook her head. No transmissions. Silence is leverage. Reactors throbbed as Ryat cheated physical law to keep the ship tucked in the Leviathan's slipstream. They were so close now that the beast's subdermal power conduits were visible. Veins of liquid ion humming like city traffic. The view stirred wonder Sella didn't have time for. Another tender tried a suicide charge. Ramming torpedoes primed. The beast flicked its tail, a structure bigger than a colony spire. The tender shattered, flinging molten hunks that pattered off Vagrant Wind's angled hull. The shock slammed crew against harnesses. One of the aft dorsal plates cracked. Red indicator flags rained across Ryat's console. Skip, Ryat grunted. We just lost 20% shield grid, and power conduit sea decks fried. We're flying naked on the spine. How long until we cook? Depends. How molten do you enjoy your toes? Sella clenched jaw muscles until they hurt. They needed an exit vector before the Dominion regrouped to flank both sides. She scanned tack plots. The flagship Archon of Redemption, a cathedral of guns and gold leaf, was backing away, launching grappler drones. Each drone lugged a hyper-silk tether meant to latch onto the Leviathan and drag it inert via override pulses. A way out formed in Sella's mind like a bridge across a canyon. Shepard, paint me a line past the Archon to that magnetar fragment in Sector 9 Bravo. The rock the size of a cargo bay? That fragment? Shepard frowned. Exactly. Dominion doctrine demands they hold the flag rearward. We thread between the beast and their hull, break off at the last second, and kick full burn for the rock. They'll be too busy fearing the ram to chase, and the fragment's gravity wave can sling us onto an exit arc. Ballsy, Shepard said, but her fingers moved. Plot on your board, Captain. Sella pulsed the thrusters, nudging Vagrant Wind inward, so the Corvette nearly brushed the Leviathan's tendril whiskers. One miscalculation, and they'd be pulp on a cosmic reef. You, break silence! Broadcast the inverted hymn again, double strength, target lock on Archon's forward arrays. You sucked a breath but complied. 2 pulses. 3. The Seraph reacted like a storm. It angled, new heading perfectly aligned with the Dominion flagship. Archon of Redemption panicked. Point defense batteries lit the dark, carving fountains of flak. Grappler drones launched early, tethers flailing. One slapped across the Leviathan's dorsal hide. Magnetic harpoon seeking purchase. Instead of dragging, the tether sheared as the creature's field spines spun up, a buzzsaw of monomolecular filaments. Now, Sella roared. Helm, 40-degree yaw, max thrust. Vagrant Wind peeled away, thrusters screaming. Heat alarms shrieked. Lines on the reactor's containment field danced. The Corvette skated across the Leviathan's flank and dove under its ventral ridge, then rolled belly up, breaking clear 200 meters from the War Seraph's gravid stomach. For an instant they were exposed, silhouette bright against conflagration. Archon of Redemption's gunners snapped on the small target, but realized too late that the bigger nightmare was still inbound. Sella caught a glimpse through the blister, the flagship's bow, sculpted like an angelic face, opening missile ports. The Leviathan struck. The Archon's ornate prow crumpled as if kneeling before a god made of its own arrogance. Techno-organic bone bored through reactor banks, rupturing them in a chain of blue suns. Shockwaves tore off the flagship's spires, flinging them like javelins into the darkness. Radiation storms battered vagrant wind. Internal lights died. Backup capacitors flooded the deck with dull red. Shepard reported, shields collapsed. But we're out of the firing cone. Fragment gravity at 1.2 Gs and rising. Ready for slingshot, Orlan added. Recommend jettisoning armor to reduce mass. Do it, Sella said. The ship shuddered as outer plates separated on explosive bolts, tumbling backward into the inferno. Behind them, chaos reigned. The wounded Leviathan and the dying flagship were locked like duelists, frozen in the moment of mutually assured murder. Smaller Dominion vessels scattered, captains abandoning formation to avoid collateral doom. Vagrant wind slipped through the widening seams. Riot's raspy voice cut in. Skip, core temp still climbing. We can make the slingshot, but we're venting coolant. Pick a vector home or a vector to oblivion. Home, Sella replied. Set course for Coalition Beacon 114, Freeport, Carthage. The fragment's gravity well seized them. Sella felt the artificial downpull tug organs sideways. The navigation AI chirped. Countdown to breakaway in 13, 12. A new sound flooded comms. Basso mournful vibrations. The war seraph's hunting lament, carrying across vacuum through modulated microwaves. Even crippled, it sang. Understandable or not, Sella heard rage and sorrow braided together. She wondered if the Dominion programmed those emotions or if the creature spoke for itself. Distance increasing, you said. Her voice trembled. Signal fading. 10, 9, 8. Sella watched the Leviathan through aft cams. Fire wreathed it, but already scab plates oozed over breaches. The Dominion survivors peppered it from all sides, trying to corral it before it could jump to superluminal speed. But the creature's antimatter swim bladders were flaring to life. In hours, perhaps minutes, it would vanish into deep space, maybe never to be seen again. She felt a tug of kinship. Two predators lured into war they hadn't asked for, forced to choose survival over allegiance. 3, 2, 1. Vagrant wind leapt free of the fragment's clutch, engines igniting in a steady burn along the escape corridor. Enemy pursuit ships formed, but hesitated to cross the path of their own berserk titan. By the time command clarity returned, the Corvette would be a speck beyond sensor range. Interior lights brightened as primary power stabilized. The crew exhaled as one organism. On the blister deck, Sella turned off mag boots once more and floated. Metal hissed, cooling. Blood roared in her ears. She tapped her mic. Status? Shepard answered first. Hull integrity 58%. Weapons depleted, but railgun intact. Casualty list, 5 minor injuries, 1 broken arm, no dead. Riot added, reactor nominal again. She'll purr if we treat her gentle. Orlan, wistful, said, I think we just wrote ourselves into the Academy textbooks. Sella gripped a railing to steady herself. The stars ahead glittered, innocent of war. She considered what she might say in the after-action report. A lone Corvette, outgunned, chose audacity over retreat. Weaponized a Leviathan neither enemy nor ally could claim. Survived, simple facts. They would never convey the smell of ozone, the shriek of tortured engines, the moment splendor in obeisance broke like a toy. Nor would they capture the note of the Leviathan's final lament echoing inside Marrow. Yu's gentle voice interrupted her reverie. Skipper, incoming text burst from Coalition High Command. They tracked the flare signatures. Confirm Archon of Redemption destroyed. Await sitrep. Godspeed. Acknowledge receipt, Sella said. She allowed herself a slow inhalation. And someone tell High Command to start carving space on every metal board they own. The Vagrant Wind family just earned their weight in shiny bits. Laughter rippled through the ship. She floated a moment longer, cross-legged in 0G, witnessing the dwindling glow of wreckage astern. Somewhere inside that halo, a creature of gene sorcery was carving its own escape, liberated by human desperation. She lifted 2 fingers to her brow in a half salute. Good hunting, old monster, she whispered. Then she kicked off toward the bridge, boots magnetizing on touchdown, already planning repair schedules, ration counts, and the quiet message she'd send to an ex-wife who studied Leviathans, yet never imagined seeing one turned into a living battering ram. War would go on, More fleets, more beasts, more gambits. But for tonight, a single Corvette had reminded both Tyrant and Titans that small things with sharp minds could tilt the balance of cosmos. Outside, the stars stretched on unmarred, endless, waiting to test that lesson again.